Kentucky Governor Tom Bevin with us right now. The governor was among a very small group meeting with the president just a short time ago on jobs and what have you. Governor, it's good to have you, sir, and I did want to touch base with you a little bit on what's happening in Washington and these shootings and concern here that maybe this is a preview of coming attractions, that this could get worse unless the rhetoric, calms down. What do you think?
I mean, it's heartbreaking. It truly is. These are sobering times. This was a sobering event that took place, and it shocked people. It woke people up. But the thing that strikes me, Neil, is this. This is the embodiment, sadly, the actual physical enacting of things that you read by the millions literally every single day on social media. There are people who write these things with impunity, who say they're going to do these things, who call for others to do these things every single day in Twitter feeds, in Facebook posts, in rants, in trolling, etc. that occurs. And we now have become almost accustomed to it to the degree that we don't call evil out. And what occurred was an act of absolutely unadulterated evil. You cannot regulate this. There is no law or rule that would have prevented this. This is evil that lurks in the hearts of men, and it has for since the dawn of time.
No, you're right about that, Governor, but the reason why I mention it is you're talking about some of the rantings of James Hutchinson, who was behind the attack yesterday, was killed in the shootout here. But he had been posting on Facebook, among other sites, over the last few days, everything from this line: Trump is guilty and should go to prison, make America great again, and resign. And then finally, as they got more heated and ominous, it is time to destroy Trump and company. Now, if authorities or those who frequent these pages hear, read this, see this, should they act on it? Should they give even authorities a heads up as to what is going back and forth here? When does that discourse go from the rantings of a guy who doesn't seem stable to someone who could cause great harm?
This has always been the challenge. This has always been that fine line in the First Amendment rights of Americans to freedom of speech and to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And so there is no easy answer to that. There is no answer I nor anyone else will come up with either now or at any time that will find that perfect dividing line. But I think it is imperative upon us.
I'm very sorry, and I do want to get into the jobs thing as well, so I apologize. Yes. But the reason why some of your Republican colleagues are saying when you are crossing the line into threatening someone, you don't have these free speech rights. I'm paraphrasing here, but what do you make of that? Do you agree with that?
I don't entirely disagree, but again, it depends on exactly what was said and when and in what circumstance. And so it isn't easily answered at this time. I would simply say this: we owe it to ourselves to be our brother's keeper, to treat one another as we would want to be treated, to treat one another with civil discourse, to be respectful, and to call out those who do not, and including those in our media who, frankly, foster this, dwell on this, celebrate this, and elevate this. And we've got to stop, because we feed into the base element among us that has always existed.
Governor, all of this occurs at a time where the president is trying to continue with his agenda. There's a separate issue of whether a potential investigation on the part of former FBI Director Mueller has grown to include the president himself and possible obstruction. We don't know for sure. So I guess where I'm coming from, sir, is this idea that it could distract from that agenda, including the very one that has you at the White House today, talking up jobs that don't necessarily require college education, apprenticeship programs, valuing skill sets and the kind of thing we used to as a country, but now we don't seem to anymore. Do you worry, whatever your views on all of these matters, that the president's agenda has been compromised, that everything he wants to get done is delayed or potentially denied?
Here's why I don't worry about it, because what he is speaking about, and I am encouraged to be here. I was grateful for the invitation because it speaks to the heart of what I care about in Kentucky, and I'm not alone. 49 other governors and a number of others in territories care about the same thing, which is workforce development and ensuring that we have every single member of our society from every demographic, those that are the traditional working class, people in prison, people who are veterans returning, whatever the case might be, being engaged through apprenticeships, through college education, through whatever the case might be. This is a president who gets gets it. It's a president who is saying things that resonate with people. So to your question, I'm not concerned about the distraction, because who is distracted is people who follow the news media cycle incessantly. The people who are distracted are people inside the very town that I'm talking to, because this is the coin of the realm, is this type of discourse and dialogue and chit-chat and rumor and gossip. But out there in real world America, including in Kentucky, people want a president who follows up on his promises. They want a man who says he's going to focus on America first and bring jobs and focus on employment and actually does these things. And he is checking off the boxes. And I'm telling you what, I think he would be elected with a higher percentage of the vote now than he got just this past fall. I truly am convinced of that, because out in real America, people are grateful for the fact that for the first time in a long time, we have somebody at the highest level of politics who says what he means and then follows up on it.
Well, you're both beneficiaries of polls and surveys that were very, very wrong. I mean, I can remember a time when you were trailing by 20 points and people thought, what the heck is this guy doing, even thinking of running? And you won, and comfortably. Donald Trump, similar, not by the same margin, but did. But nevertheless, these approval numbers, which might be just as spotty, and you're right to question them, but do you think that it weighs on him? When you talk and meet with the president, is it something that is bothering him?
I can't speak for his mindset and whether or not it does. I have encouraged him, quite frankly, to turn not you specifically, Neil, but pretty much everybody else off. Because, frankly,
it's a good piece of advice right there.
It's a distraction. It's a distraction. And I think in some measure, his level of energy and his enthusiasm, as was exemplified today in our conversation, a number of governors, Democrat and Republican alike, all of us in complete agreement and appreciation for his focus on workforce development, because it's what every single one of us is wrestling with, what every one of us needs, and why I am confident this will not get lost in the shuffle, because every one of us has it as a top priority for ourselves. I think his focus on it, whether people like it or not, draws attention to things. In his discussion of apprenticeships and of non-traditional training programs, as we have historically thought of training programs in America, is good. His idea that people can earn while they are learning for even higher degrees and responsibilities is a long time in coming. It's good for America, and I think it's going to resonate with the American people.
Nevertheless, you're also a pretty successful businessman before you arrived in the governor's mansion in Kentucky, and the markets have been hiccuping lately. Now, of course, we're not going to make a big deal over a couple of days' performance, but there does seem to be some growing angst. It's certainly not paramount, because the markets are up appreciably since the president was elected and even inaugurated. But that they are getting up hope a little bit, or they're getting concerned that this might be pushed back. An agenda that most of them, not all of them, but most of them like, is getting pushed back. Are you?
I don't think it's even related at all. What you have historically seen, you're a man who knows the markets. I spent my large parts of my life in the investment business prior to being in this role. And I will say this, when you have the kind of run-up that we have, $4 trillion in capital invested or created in the market since this president was elected, you're going to see steam get let off. It happens time and again. This isn't even close to an actual correction, and yet we're arguably due for a correction. And we have seen this historically. You have a run-up, you have a correction, and then you take off again.
So even
I think this is natural.
Even a correction of 10% would not dissuade you?
No, I don't think it's even at all related to the things that we've been talking about here. I think it's a natural course of the actual markets operating.
All right. And the last question, I know you got to go, sir, but there had been talk the administration was considering firing former FBI Director Mueller. Do you think that would be a mistake?
I think it's rumor and allegation. And again, it is, as I said earlier, the coin of the realm. I think the less we dwell on titillating rumors and more on things that actually matter, not the least of which was the tragedy that happened yesterday, lessons we can learn from it, and how we can live up to Kentucky's motto, which is united we stand and divided we fall. I think if we learn lessons like that, focus on things like apprenticeships and training America's workforce for the 21st century, we're not going to be distracted by rumors about who may or may not be let go as a special investigator.
So even if the president were entertaining that, not to be entertained, you don't think that's a good idea?
No, I think it's just a distraction. It's so much static and noise, and I think irrelevant to anything of substance.
All right, so now the president's going to stop watching me as well, I guess. All right, Governor, thank you very much. It's very good seeing you, sir.